Hi everyone, yasas que kalosirtate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to show you how I make my Lemony Linzer cookies. These are buttery vanilla shortbread cookies that are sandwiched with a zesty and bright homemade lemon curd. They're beautiful and they are bursting with citrus flavor. Whether you're going to be serving these for a special springtime gathering, giving them away as gifts, or just treating yourself with a nice cup of coffee, you are going to love them and they're going to be a hit. Let's get started. Okay, let's begin by making the lemon curd. So we're going to separate 4 whole eggs, and I'll keep the whites for another recipe, possibly a meringue cookie or something like that. We do not eat egg white omelet around here. I don't know if you do. If you do, you can definitely save them. But we're going to use the yolks. So we need 4 yolks. They're going to go in a big bowl. Next, we're going to zest 2 lemons. So we'll be using the juice and the zest of the lemon. And anytime you're using both, you want to get the zest out first, because once it's juiced, you can't zest it. You can zest the lemons right into the bowl. We need about 1 tablespoon of it. So 2 lemons, they're going to be perfect. Now I'll juice the lemons and I'll add 1 more because we need half a cup of lemon juice for this. Fresh lemon juice, of course, as always. Then I have a stick of butter here. I'll just cut it up really quickly in these big chunks because it's going in last. Now I'll add 3/4 of a cup or 150 grams of granulated sugar to this. Whisk it all together, and this is going to go over a pot that is about 1/3 of the way filled with water. I brought the water to a boil first, and then I reduced the heat to low, just so that way the water is simmering. You don't want it to be boiling on high heat. Put the bowl on top. Make sure that you're starting off with a heat-proof bowl, so if you're using glass, it doesn't shatter everywhere. A heat-proof glass bowl will be good, or a metal bowl, either will do. Now you just want to stand over here for the full 10 minutes and continue to whisk this until it begins to thicken. If you want to test it with a thermometer, once it reaches 170 degrees Fahrenheit or 77 degrees Celsius, it's ready. Take it off of the heat, add the butter in, and whisk it all together until the butter has completely melted in there. You can leave this at room temperature and then it'll thicken even more. I like to transfer it into little jars and store it in my refrigerator. This will stay fresh in the refrigerator for a week, but if you want to freeze it, it'll stay fresh for 3 months in the freezer. Now let's move on, and we're going to make the shortbread cookies. They're so simple. We're going to take 3/4 of a pound of unsalted butter that's soft and at room temperature, and it's going to go in my mixing bowl. My mixer is fitted with the paddle attachment. I'll also add half a cup of granulated sugar and half a cup of powdered sugar to this, a half a teaspoon of salt, and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. This is going to begin beating on a low speed, and then once the ingredients have come together, then we're going to increase the speed to high, mixing it until everything is nice and fluffy. You can go in after a few seconds and just scrape the sides of the bowl down with a spatula, just so that way everything combines evenly. And now we're going to add the flour, 3 cups or 500 grams of all-purpose flour, a little bit at a time while the mixer is mixing on low speed until all of the flour has been incorporated and the dough is ready. I'll just lightly flour my work surface and transfer all of this dough onto the work surface. And then we're going to roll this out to a 1/4 inch in thickness. You don't want to get these cookies too thick because they're going to be sandwiched together. So the thinner, the better. Okay, so a 1/4 inch is perfect. And then you can use your favorite cookie cutters to cut out whatever shapes you like. When I'm making Linzer cookies, I know you can find them on Amazon or in kitchen supply stores as sets. So the large cutter will be sold together with small cutters. And I do prefer them to the ones that are sold as one cookie cutter with a small one attached to it. I'll show you both and you'll see why. The ones that have the smaller cookie cutter attached to it, they're hard to work with. The cookies break while you're making them. It's really tricky to use them. Sometimes the cookies get stuck in between, and the inside cookie cutter is a little bit too small. I like it when the smaller cookie cutter is still a little bit on the larger side, but use what you want. You can use any shapes you like. You can use 2 different shapes of hearts. You can do round with little flower cutouts in the center, bunnies if you're making these for Easter, little chicks, whatever you like. It's all going to look really pretty. Cut the cookies out, and once you're done cutting the first batch out, you can just gather the dough all together and roll it out again. Try to use as little flour as possible, just so that way the dough doesn't start to get too dry and crumbly. Go ahead and carefully transfer the cookies onto parchment-lined baking trays, and now we're going to chill them for a little while, about 20 to 30 minutes, just until they set. You can preheat the oven in the meantime. 350 degrees Fahrenheit is what we're looking for. And you can bake 2 trays at a time if your oven allows the space. These are going to bake for about 20 minutes or until they're lightly golden on top and golden around the edges. You don't want to go too dark with these cookies. Let them cool completely, and then I take all of the tops and put them on one baking tray. Dust them with lots of confectioner sugar. So for this size cookie, I'll add a teaspoon of the lemon curd to the bottom cookie. You can spread it if you like, but you really don't have to, because once you put the tops on, the curd kind of spreads. And if you want to add a little bit more once the tops are on, you can. It's completely up to you. These are going to need some time to set at this point, because if you try to serve these as is, the lemon curd might slip. So you want to either stick these in the refrigerator for 30 minutes or the freezer for 10-15 minutes, or you can leave them out at room temperature for about an hour, just until that curd gets a chance to glue those cookies together. And then that's it. You can transfer them to a serving platter and serve these with coffee or tea. Any leftover cookies can be stored in the refrigerator for about a week or in the freezer for a little bit longer. And there you have it. The Lemony Linzer cookies are ready. They're as beautiful as they are delicious. Nothing beats a homemade lemon curd, so I would not recommend using store-bought for this, because it just won't taste as fresh and as bright and as zesty. It takes 10 minutes to make it and just a few basic, simple ingredients. And if you're making it, it'll take the same amount of time if you double or even triple the recipe up. It freezes beautifully, so once it's cooled down, you can transfer it to a freezer-safe container, and it'll stay fresh in your freezer for up to 3 months. And when you take it out, even if it's 2 or 3 months later, it'll taste just as fresh as the first day that it was made. I love to make cookies with it, just like we did today. You can stir this into buttercreams or pastry creams. You can swirl it in yogurt or on top of ice cream. There's so many options for this, so it's definitely a great thing to have on hand. Of course, you can substitute oranges for it. Any citrus will work for this. One tip about making it, I have seen other chefs and cooks on YouTube, and I've read in other blogs, when they're making the lemon curd, instead of using the double boiler method like I did, sometimes they'll cook it directly over the heat in the pan. I have always been too scared to try that because the ingredients are so delicate, and when you're working with raw eggs, it can be very tricky to skip the step of a double boiler and cook it directly on the heat. You have to be so careful with it. So just use the double boiler and go nice and slow. 10 minutes is not that long of a wait. Keep whisking it until it begins to thicken. And then once it comes off of the heat, it's still gonna look pretty thin, but as it sits, this is gonna thicken up so beautifully, and it's gonna be luscious and delicious. Let's do the taste test. I can no longer wait. These are like springtime in a bite. The cookies are perfect. I think homemade shortbread cookies, there's nothing like it. They're buttery and light. They almost melt in your mouth, and they're kind of crisp at the same time. That lemon curd is so lemony, so bright, nice and sweet, just the way we like it. I think you guys are gonna love this recipe. If you give this recipe a try, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. You can head on over to the website to print it out and make them. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, yes. Oh my goodness.